The Catholic Underground is made possible by your prayer and financial support. We're a new media apostolate that's a 501c3 organization. We produce video podcasts, as well as a number of audio podcasts about our Catholic faith. We also sponsor and coordinate new media events like the CatholiCon Expo, which recently happened in Houston. We also do initiatives like the Catholic New Media Institute, which is in development. You can help our efforts with your tax-free donations. Please click the Donate tab at our website at CatholicUnderground.com. Enjoy the episode.
From the Catholic Underground.
Well, hello there. Welcome to CatholicUnderground.com, the podcast that is our weekly Catholic guide and your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. I'm Father Chris Decker. Joining me, Joshua LeBlanc from CyberCatholics.com and BayouLandCS.com. Hello, Joshua.
Hello, everyone.
And we got Father Ryan, also from the Diocese of Alexandria, in video this week. Hello, Father.
Hello, world.
That's right. He's a little delayed, though. Whenever you see his video, you're just going to have to get used to it. It's kind of the way things are.
It'll be coming through next week. It's no problem.
That's right, yeah. So it's good to be back, actually. It's very good to be back because, as you know, we had a CatholiCon Expo a couple of weeks ago, and it's taken us a little while to get the studio set back up and to get back in the groove. But everything has been going so well. And so what I thought we would do, I don't know how this is going to work with the other guys. In fact, this may not work at all since I had to start and restart. But what I was going to do is I was going to take you through some of the CatholiCon pictures. You know, like whenever you go over to your Aunt Esther's, you had to watch. But apparently I don't have it because, that's basically how Catholic Underground works. So go to Flickr. That's all we can say. But maybe, guys, how was your impression of CatholiCon?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I of course, spent the first few hours of CatholiCon, basically on my deathbed running 101 temperature. But after I got over the massive food poisoning from Father Chris's favorite restaurant, I had a really spectacular time. It was very, very cool getting to meet Father Z. It was also very cool getting to be a part of some really beautiful liturgies. We talk a lot about those things, but it's rare that I and my low country parish get a chance to don a green cope and go out and do some beautiful liturgies. I think one of the real highlights for me actually was our think tank event, where we kind of just put a bunch of people in a room and we started talking about ideas and things that I completely didn't expect, like the large presence of Catholic newspaper professionals.
Yeah, there were quite a few.
It just wasn't even on our radar, and these people were some of the best kind of contributors to the event, and so I really enjoyed a lot of the things I didn't expect to happen, that being one of the biggest.
Joshua, how was your experience of CatholicCon? Because you were the conference coordinator.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways to word my experience, but I mean, I'm still even in awe, I guess is a way to put it, because the weekend was really such a whirlwind sort of weekend, because even though it was really just 48 hours, it seems like it was everything packed into an hour for me, because I was just running around like crazy. Though my favorite moments, I have to agree with Father Ryan, was getting to sit and visit with Father Z and get to actually know him on a real human level outside of his blog. I think for me,
that's right. Turns out he is a human.
Right. I think the time picking him up at the airport and bringing him back and being able to spend some time getting to talk to him and getting to listen to what he had to say, especially at the speaker's dinner, was just absolutely amazing, because he even brought some things to my attention that I wasn't aware of with regards to social communication. So for me, it was not just an event that was about me putting it on for someone else, but I really took away something and learned some things too, which was really great.
Yeah, and that was the fact that Inter Mirifica was a document that was actually the first one written. and penned, even though it came out with was it Lumen? No, it was the
No,
Constitution on the Liturgy. Sacrosanctum Concilium. They came out at the same time, but because the document on the liturgy was so big, In Mirifica kind of didn't get a whole lot of press. That was a nice.
I like the fact that Father Z pointed out the fact that it is highly believed that Inter Mirifica was actually promulgated before Sacrosanctum Concilium.
Yeah. So it was neat getting to know Father Z because he is kind of a wealth of knowledge, both bidden and unbidden. He's just one of those people you can set him loose and it works out really well. Yeah, the liturgies for me were beautiful. I thought the liturgies were very well done, and that seemed to be the idea that everybody else shared, is that the liturgies were great. So if you want to see some photographs, you go to CatholicUnderground.com and you can, or actually to CatholiConExpo.com. We have all the photos up there. A couple of people have asked us where the audio recordings and things are going to be made available. We're still working on getting those encoded and everything, but Joshua should be able to give us a ballpark eventually before too much time passes. And people have already asked the question of CatholicCon 2012.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still working on that. We have been in contact with our venue, and they're working on ironing out all the details with us at the moment. So we hopefully really soon we should have a date.
That's right. So there you go. So watch this space. This space, right? Well, watch this space or listen to us, and you'll find out. Okay, let's move on to the actual show that you've come here for, and that is Google Docs. Google Docs has released a new feature that allows you to collaborate with people who aren't necessarily going to be changing the document. And that's actually really fascinating. So basically you could open up, I don't know, Father, can you think of an eventuality that this would be useful?
Actually, I can think of a lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? In years past, or I shouldn't say years, but the way it has been, if you were collaborating on a document, you basically either gave the person free run to edit everything, or they could look at it and they couldn't do anything else. And there are not a lot of apps that give you a lot more control than that. Even Microsoft Word, you pretty much have to give somebody complete control or nothing at all. But what Google has allowed you to do is to post a document and then make comments on it,
Mm-hmm.
but not actually edit it. I could think of, if I was working on a talk for next year's CatholiCon, I might publish, some of my notes on it and say, give me thoughts or make comments, and open that up to a very large audience. People I wouldn't want to necessarily be able to change words or change text, but certainly could give their ideas. I could also see this being used in an incredibly social way.
Mm-hmm.
Where you open it up to lots and lots of friends on Facebook if you were, say, writing a book or if you were writing a short story. I could also see it working for something like what we do, where, if we wanted to make our rundown, the topics we're going to discuss,
Mm-hmm.
in the comment-only domains for, say, everybody who we like as a contributor. Everybody who's worked with us as a contributor could see it in comment-only mode, then they may not necessarily need to be able to edit or add articles,
Mm-hmm.
but they could certainly kind of put their comments off to the side. I think that's incredibly useful, and so I think it's actually a fairly gigantic improvement. Of course, since this article went to post, Google's added a ton of new features to their documents, including making it possible to get into a Google Hangout and work on a document with kind of video collaboration as you're doing it. So the Google Docs has improved even more. But I think it's definitely going to become a product that's going to be a big deal in the next year or so.
Well, it sounds to me kind of like they're moving towards a free version of GoToMeeting.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, because we've been talking about that as a possibility for not only our board of directors stuff for the Catholic Underground, but also as a possible way to broadcast. And imagine if Google Hangout can become as robust as something like GoToMeeting. Of course, I would hate for somebody like GoToMeeting to go out of business because there are jobs involved there. But
yeah.
Of course, they still provide a high definition type of thing, but that is pretty cool.
They allow a zero sign up thing, which is a pretty gigantic part of the equation.
Yeah,
but still, it's an incredibly valuable tool and something we really have to keep on top of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Google does have to scrape your data one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, Father. I should say Joshua likes data scraping. That actually would be on his business card, data scraper.
Oh gosh, there's so many jokes that Never mind.
Yeah, that's right. It's better if you don't. Also, we find that if you find yourself in need of this, it's available. The University of Dallas is going to begin tweeting the Bible. I can't wait to see how this works out. In fact, I've got to subscribe just to try it out. They're going to begin tweeting the Bible on the feast or in honor of St. Jerome. So on September 30th, tweeting of the Bible will begin at 12 a.m. midnight, and it will happen every 15 minutes, ending at 11:45 on September 30th. So
yeah, I need everyone to hold on to a second while I write an email. Dear USCCB.
That's right. It's the New American Bible Revised Edition, and so. But from what I understand, they're working in union with the USCCB to actually bring 96 of the more prominent verses throughout the Bible, beginning with Genesis, ending with Revelation, of course. It's an interesting idea. What do you guys think?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, my biggest thing with things like this is I'm wondering how they made the selection of what they figure is actually a prominent Bible verse. I mean,
yeah,
what makes that selection, and also just to comment real quickly on the fact that they're working in tandem with the USCCB on this. I find that very interesting because it's been my experience in the past that what happens is whenever you bring an idea to the USCCB, is they say no, you can't do it because it's copyright, but we're going to do that.
Yeah, that's happened a couple of times in the past. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I think this is actually a fantastic idea, but a terrible execution. I mean, nobody wants to subscribe to a Twitter account that effectively is spam.
Yeah. Couldn't you crash your Twitter account or consider it spam every 15 minutes?
But you're talking about one day, 24 hours, where you're just going to spam the mess out of a Twitter account that everybody's going to go, this was a fun idea for exactly 10 minutes.
Right.
Whereas if they were going to do something like tweet the whole Bible over the course of 2 years on a Twitter account where every morning they were going to blast you 140 characters of the scripture, that to me would say, this is a cool account to subscribe to. I could go with the prayer of the day or the scripture of the day over Twitter. That would be interesting to me. But I don't know what they hope to accomplish that you couldn't accomplish putting 96 verses on a website and then linking to. Honestly, who's going to be comfortable getting a tweet every 15 minutes for 24 hours and get any
Starting
real
at midnight.
use out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the exact time I want messages coming to my cell phone is I'm going to go, let me subscribe to this. And so at midnight while I'm trying to go to sleep, all these things are going to start coming through.
Well,
right. I think it's a spectacular premise.
Yeah.
I just think that the implementation of it is horrific. And I love that the School of Ministry is trying to do something new media. I just wish they had somebody there who would tell them this is not the right way to do it. There's a better way. Well,
the thing that gets me about it that I think is just amazing is it really kind of gives new credence to the fact that the Word is alive. The fact that if I'm subscribed to this Twitter account throughout the day, maybe I don't have it subscribed where it's coming onto my phone, but maybe throughout the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm kind of starting to lose a little bit of the vigor that I had when I woke up, all of a sudden I see something from one of the Old Testament passages that gives me that extra dose of courage I need to go through the day. The idea that the Word can impact me at certain points during the day, according to how the Holy Spirit wants it to happen. I mean, they're just tweeting every 15 minutes, but it's up to the Holy Spirit as to which one is going to grab me, So it's a really neat idea, but as you say, I think there's probably some room for development. If you tweet the whole Bible over the course of 2 years and you're not tweeting every 15 minutes, I mean, you'd probably have to tweet an awful lot to get the Bible done. But that is a really clever concept, though. So I have to give kudos to the University of Dallas. You can follow them. We'll put that in the show notes, but you can follow them at UD_SOM. If you want to get on board for September 30th. It ought to be interesting, and I think it's a pretty good digital homage to St. Jerome, of course, who did well before there was Twitter. He actually was just writing things down, showing it to people.
I do want to add though that there is a certain. I'm very excited within the Catholic Church to see a real resurgence in an authentically Catholic notion of Scripture, especially as I'm thinking about sacred music and the return to singing the Psalms and singing the antiphons.
Mhm.
I love that different groups within the church are not just trying to go to kind of Protestant mentalities of let's just find Protestant books that are, if you smile hard enough, you go to heaven, and here's my idea of the Scripture books, and that we're not just shipping around or shopping around for here's what this Protestant Scripture scholar says, but that we're trying within the Catholic context to really embrace the Scriptures. I love that. That's why I'm really supportive of the idea of what they're doing, and I really want more Catholics to embrace an authentic Catholic notion of what Scripture spirituality and also scriptural theology can be.
Yeah, Father, you were saying you were having a meeting with your choir, and whenever it just kind of hit you all at the same time, we should be singing the Scriptures.
Yeah.
Not poetry about the Scriptures, but we should be singing the antiphons because that's the Bible coming alive. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing to see that there's kind of a rediscovery of the Bible. In the chat room, Bug Zoo says, but St. Jerome wasn't limited to 140 characters at a time. Can you imagine if he had to write in spurts like that? I would have given up.
Less biting,
That's right.
I'm all in favors of 140 character homilies.
That's right.
There are Greek words that are longer than 140 characters.
That's exactly right. WRD made FLSH, right? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Now, we don't often cover celebrity news on Catholic Underground, which, and rightly so. I mean, most celebrity news it's just goofy. But there is an interesting story that comes to us from Buster and Mickey of the Paparazzi, namely that In Touch magazine reported wrongly that Will Smith and his wife, Jada Pinket-Smith, which I think is one of the best hyphenated names on earth, were divorcing. They reported that they were divorcing. And Father Ryan, who prepares the show notes, is when the press contacted the Fresh Prince, he told him that the story was bogus. And Father, would you like to kind of continue the quote here?
Yeah. So the great quote is that Smith tells MTV, or rather, this is a quote from 2006 when he was getting married to Jada Pinkett Smith. He said that divorce was not an option for him. And quote, he said, with Jada, I stood up in front of God and I said, till death do us part. So there are two possible outcomes. One, we're going to be together till death, or two, I'm dead. And then in 2009, in an interview with Ebony, Pinkett Smith recounted a conversation she had with Will Smith after he had proposed. And, in that kind of time of engagement, he said, I said, understand this. There will be no divorce. So you may be in one bedroom and I may be in another, but we're going to be under the same roof and we're going to be married.
Mm.
Which I think is just wonderful. It gives me so much joy to hear people say that this matters, marriage matters, and even if we're miserable, by God, we're going to stay together because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's something that is almost foreign now, whereas it wasn't in I would say years past, but not too long ago. I mean, if you think about couples who understood the sacredness of marriage and understood the way marriage ought to be. And they'd have their spats, they'd have their trouble, and they'd go from sharing a bed to being Rob and Laura Petrie, for a couple of weeks or whatever, or even months or years. But they understood that marriage was about much more than just their emotional happiness. And I mean, I often think about that with priesthood. There are times when your heart begins to kind of the fervors of what you're doing wears off. And I told the Lord a long time ago, Lord, you called me to the priesthood. I may be unhappy. I may be the most grizzled man on earth, but I will be a priest for you. And to hear that from a married couple that has such a notoriety is really something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I don't think Smith or Pinket-Smith, just love saying it, I don't think they're Catholic.
No, they're not there. But Will Smith has talked about the importance of his faith in years past. I think he comes from a gospel tradition. Mm-hmm. But my grandparents lived in two separate rooms for the last probably 10 years, 12 years of their marriage. And there were never two more different people in the world, and their
Right.
their marriage was not the definition of morality or holiness, but that it was important to them, that marriage was important, and their children seeing marriage, even though they had their foibles, that was just the way it was. And I really respect Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith in a whole new light, because even beyond religion, there should be a certain amount of, if you stand up and you make a promise, then your word should be your bond. And if it's not, then you have to wonder, what are you, and what makes you a person, with any sense of gravitas. And so, I mean, I'm super excited about this article, even though it's a month old. I really think it's important.
Yeah, and it's certainly worthy of covering, because we as Catholics have a very distinct view of what marriage is, and it's beautiful when someone who does not share the fullness of the faith comes about it by either their own will or through understanding that the Holy Spirit is informing this sacrament. That can come about outside of the Catholic Church. I mean, that we believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But how beautiful that is, and kudos to you, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, and your children as well. They do that.
And your little short people.
That's right, and your small people as well. All right. Connected to that, one of the ways that marriages are infinitely open to life is by procreation, which is one of the goods of marriage, right? Being fruitful and multiplying. And one of the ways to do that within the context of marriage is natural family planning. It's a way, of course, if you go in deeper, if you know a lot about NFP, it's a way of using the natural cycles of a woman, as well as discernment, to discern how fertility is to take place. I know, Josh, you and your wife practice NFP, I believe, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and so many Catholic families do, and now there is even more reason to practice NFP because there's an app for it.
Wow.
As it were.
Well, for about the last 4 years, there's been a little handheld computer.
That looks a bit like Ziggy from Quantum Leap.
And I mean, crazy expensive,
It also, that's because it comes with Al.
That's
What's
right.
that?
It comes with Al from Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
You have to have Dean Stockwell following you around, tracking
Smoking a cigar.
a large cigar that, for some reason, even though he's a hologram, still enters into the atmosphere. Anyway.
But,
What's projecting it? Sorry.
And there's been some fairly cheap software, but now there's, from what I understand, there's a new company called Fertile View, and they're not the only one on the block, but more and more it's becoming reasonable and even simple for couples who have Android or iOS devices to do, the kind of natural family planning that used to involve charts and what are those things called, sextants? Where you look. No, I'm just joking. But I mean, it used to involve a lot of charts and a lot of math, and now is made really simple, and it makes it just reduces the learning curve and makes it very simple to do NFP.
Very cool.
It's so funny. I feel compelled to tell this story very quickly. It's when you talked about the many apps that there are on iOS. I remember back in the day whenever I first got my iPhone, and Annie and I were searching, and I came across this NFP app. I was like, oh, great, we're going to download it. And we download it, and we realized that it was horribly written. This thing was written by somebody in China or something like that, because we're looking at this going, who can make heads or tails of this app? So we deleted it. And at the time, you remember, I don't know how they got this information, but apparently whenever you deleted it, it made some kind of notation on your web account, because you had to create a web account with it as well.
You deleted us.
We started getting these emails from the developer speaking in this broken English about why you delete my app.
Oh, no.
Like that. I was like, oh, no, I'm getting harassed. And this guy just would not let it go. I mean, like, do you think I'm horrible? Do you not like me?
Oh, no.
Did the man's name have Ming? Was it a fellow named Ming Nguyen? I know him. He's
I created it.
That's too bad.
Nope, they're right. I'm not going to respond to this.
Yeah, so maybe this won't harass you. This will actually help you with yeah. So we'll put that in the show notes from LifeSite News, lifenews.com. Very good. Now this is one of our usual rails here.
yeah.
our kindred spirits over at Catholic Tech Talk. We've had a very good relationship with them in the recent past because they're a fairly new foray into the digital continent. But they have called out into the wilderness for a better parishioner engagement system. We're not talking necessarily about marriage, but we're talking about something like a parish database system.
Yeah, because PDS stands for pretty desperate situation.
It really, it's pretty darn responsive too.
Yeah. And so I guess really to talk about this again, we'd probably be beating our podcast listeners over the head with a shovel because we talk about it. But
this article is a little different in that it doesn't just call for better database management, but it does say that there are some things that an engagement system in the parish would do that's not necessarily just about managing data. It's things like, do you have a way for parishioners when they register to give you their Twitter handle, Facebook information, thinking along the lines of Flocknote, what's the best way to contact you? If you'd prefer, we can text you, but if you'd prefer, we'll just message you on LinkedIn. And it also says, things along the lines of, if you want to contact the pastor, he is able, even if he's not necessarily tech savvy, to communicate with you across all the different kinds of social communication that's out there. And that goes kind of beyond just a better parish data system. It really says, even if you're stuck like I am with PDS, are there ways for your parish to establish these kind of protocols? I mean, I just put a Facebook page up for my church. I don't like the idea of doing a Facebook page for my church. It's just one more place I have to maintain. I think we have a pretty good website at camptecatholicchurch.com. But what they're asking for is that parishes should make every effort to accommodate the different ways that you can communicate, even if it is a hassle. And if somebody puts it all into one system, well, that would be spectacular. But even if they don't, it doesn't mean that we can just say we don't have to worry about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say this. My local parish uses PDS because it's actually required by the diocese now. Everybody has to log into the diocese via a terminal services, and they use it off of the diocesan server. And I will say that PDS has actually made a lot of headway since the last time I had used it, which was probably about 10 years ago. It's really developed itself into more than just... it's much more user-friendly, and it's not just about census and that sort of stuff anymore. It really is an entire parish management system. But the problem that boils down to it is I think the interactivity is not there. It's great for the parish staff, but there's no interactivity on the end of the parishioner. Yeah. So, for example, I'll use our parish secretary now is trying to start sending out all of the lector schedule via email. Well, she said the first time she tried to do that, a whole bunch of emails came back as invalid.
Because the emails are 20 years old and from Prodigy.
Yeah, right. And who knows how long ago these things were collected. But the thing on top of that is, so what does she have to do? She has to pick up the phone and start calling people and getting the information.
I'm calling you to ask you your email address.
This is going to be making things simpler.
That's right.
No way for me to be able to go in and update my own account information and have it sync with the parishes. And I think if they could do something like that, they would make it much more useful than it is now. Because as it stands now, they've really started to integrate things. They have things like building scheduling software is one of the things I just installed for them, so they can actually schedule the church, and they can schedule the hall, and they can schedule meeting rooms and whatnot for all of these different events. And so things don't get
double booked and that sort of thing.
Double booked and things on top of each other, right? But and all these modules have started talking to each other now, it's really kind of cool. It's really kind of impressive how they've come. But I think in the age of Facebook and Twitter, to not be able to have some kind of web interface for this, where people can go in and update their own information, is really just going to not help the situation.
The idea of being able to update my profile and then have that immediately available to the secretary is a really awesome idea. Would you think that some privacy settings like Facebook of controlling what the parish can see would be important too?
Only if you're going to really put some robust social networking type of tools on top of it. I mean, if it's just for the purpose of here's my census and financial information, then I would think you wouldn't want others to see that for any reason.
Right.
but I think that one of the things that we miss is that a lot of the work that parishes do, and that people don't ordinarily realize, is kind of ridiculous work. Like someone calls and says, "Little Johnny needs a baptismal certificate," or "My aunt died there 374 years ago. Can you get me a copy of her this, that, and the other?" Or, so and so was married here 50 years ago. Do you have any records? So much of that. Genealogical information, baptismal records, and also things like, I make contributions to the church. Can you print out a receipt for me? So many of those things could be done entirely on the digital level. People could log in with fairly, kind of credentials that you don't have to give them. Like use your SSN. And if you want to apply for a password, we'll give you a verification code. You put in whatever password you want, and we're done. Things like that could become incredibly valuable, and could also save the parish secretary and parish pastor a lot of time doing stuff that really doesn't need to be handled by a human being anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole stewardship of finance thing is awesome too. The idea that I can see on a digital display, a little thermometer of how much I've tithed, and how much more I've got to go to reach my annual pledge of what I said during the stewardship of a finance appeal in my parish, what I would do, what I said I would give, and that can be really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so can doing things like, you have us check boxes of aptitudes. These are things I'm good at, and you can, then the parish is able to say, people who check this box, here are things to do. And somebody may not be able or ready or interested in that, but they check back once a week or once a month, and they say, right now is a good time. And instead of having to go look through a long list at a ministry fair or just a chart somewhere, you have a customized list of, here are groups that are interested, that need help. Here's how to contact them. Here's an email, a Facebook, so on and so forth. And it's all right there to click. I mean, that becomes a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. I would love to see a Ferris wheel at a ministry fair.
Oh, I hate that term.
I know it's not one of my favorite terms either, but they exist.
But if I could have a Ferris wheel, I'd like to have one in my backyard.
That's right. But would you also have to have the smarmy Ferris wheel operator there all the time?
Well, it would need to be a very, very pimply 17-year-old who's very unhappy about everything.
That's right. Or a spooky cigar-smoking, quarter overall-wearing trucker cap person.
Yeah, with Dunlop disease, where there's belly Dunlopped over his belt, and the whole wide open thing, where the kind of guy you say, if you stop us on top, I'll give you half this eating corn dog. All right, that's the one I want working for me.
I like that half of eating corn dog, please.
I'll give you the rest of this corn dog if you stop us on top. Oh, okay.
We moved from corn dog to cathedral. We talked a little bit about. Did you see what I did there? We talked a lot about the Orange County Crystal Cathedral becoming a Catholic cathedral, which apparently is not to be, at least not now. But if you
and the angels rejoiced.
That's right. Amen. But if you go across the United States, there we go, to the other side of the country, you've got in Raleigh, North Carolina, the beginnings of a new cathedral that is going to be built, and it's a beautiful, beautiful structure. In fact, I'll pop over. You can see here on the interwebs. It's a beautiful cruciform structure that they've got going. That they're planning. It really beautiful. It's got some of the mission style on the facade, but then they've also got some of your more Spanish sort of things.
Yeah, the nave is very Romanesque with the multiple levels of windows.
Yeah, and actually, this is the floor plan for it. You can see they have a very large plaza. A la just about every church in Italy.
I love the Saint. That's what I was going to say. I love the Saint falls outside the walls looking.
Yeah, that kind of that rotunda, that cloister walk.
Yeah,
and they also have included a large meeting hall, as they're describing it. A gathering hall is what they're calling it.
Yeah, that kind of a narthex before the nave type of thing.
Well, actually, no. I think it's a separate building. I think the little doodad off to the right there. That's.
Oh, I gotcha. I see it. Yeah, in the picture.
Yeah, I believe that's it's not a separate building, but it's far enough away where if people want to gather and talk and yammer, they can do that without getting in the way of anything else. It's just a glorious little place.
And then their baptistry, it looks like the baptistry on the side is restored to its. Is that either a baptistry? It looks like it may be a sacristy. Just looking at the
It's
floor
hard to say.
plan.
They don't have anything labeled, but it does seem like a baptistry because it's
Yeah.
as large as it is. And
I
then
do- I
they've
do love-
actually arranged for what looks like a daily mass kind of side chapel operation as
Yeah,
well.
really interesting.
I do love the large amount of greenery surrounding the facility.
Yeah,
I think that
that-
makes it.
That really
Very
is a beautiful
prayerful.
thing. Yeah, I like the fact that a cathedral. Usually, when you think of a cathedral, you think of it being in the city center, but having a large amount of green space where the cathedral almost takes on kind of a monastic setting is really a beautiful concept.
Yeah. I really, the only thing I hope that I don't see on the drawing is I really hope they put a baldachin in.
Yeah, we haven't seen any
Because they've got this beautiful old Roman design, and to put in a glorious baldacchino above that altar would just be the perfect.
yeah.
And I think it's very beautiful. It appears from the drawing, it looks like the bishop's cathedra is going to be off there to the left.
Yeah, I see what looks. Yeah,
And it looks like the tabernacle will be center behind the altar of
That's right.
sacrifice. So,
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
which I'm sure there's going to be a baldacchino there.
I hope so.
You'd hope. Oh, in the chat room, Bugsy was asking, a baldachin or a baldacchino is the large canopy that's on 4 columns that is supposed to be over the altar. That is, it's symbolic of a lot of stuff, and it comes from ancient tradition. But it's that 4-legged
The
canopy
Holy of Holies.
doodad. Yeah.
That's right. Just a quick Google image search shows you the baldacchino in St. Peter's. You can see the big Bernini.
Spiral.
Yeah,
That's
baldacchino.
arguably the most famous baldachin. Either that or St. Mary's, St. Mary Major being the most famous baldachin in the world.
It was number 1 in the Google image search.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So very, very cool. Yeah. So it'll be great to see how this progresses and how the people react to it too. Really, it's nice to see architecture as a work of art.
Yeah. Total cost is estimated between 75 and 90 million for the entire complex. That's all the landscaping, an enormous amount of building, and as well as all the expenses of producing everything on the inside. So, big price tag, but glorious compared to the nonsense that was the Crystal Cathedral. Really a beautiful Catholic establishment.
Yeah, and moving on to the next topic, this is a really awesome example of solid Catholicism in architecture. And the Kurt Jester over there, one of our good friends, who will be at CatholiCon 2012, we're going to drag him from wherever he is to. He actually has a great quote from Archbishop Dolan, who is calling for an end to Catholic light. And you know what we're talking about. The kind of, if I want to believe it, I'll believe it. If I don't want to believe it, I won't believe it, you know. And let's see. I don't have the quote here.
We
Well,
also
I'll read
call
it.
it cafeteria Catholicism.
That's right, cafeteria
Yeah.
Catholicism, yeah.
So the context is that Archbishop Dolan was sitting on the stage, quote unquote, in the sanctuary at World Youth Day in one of the big outdoor masses. And in fact, he was at all 4 big outdoor masses at World Youth Day in Spain. And the quote goes like this. He said, "The planners of each mass wisely and thoughtfully, when you think about it, printed in the mass booklet and even announced it before mass, look, it's so jammed in here and you're all so hot and tired, why don't you just stay seated during the Eucharistic prayer?" And Archbishop Dolan says, very practical, very wise. Let's make this simple and a bit more relaxed. Let's, quote, lighten up. What happened, the Archbishop says? I'll be darned. He will be. At all 4 occasions, all the hundreds, thousands of youth still knelt. They wanted to kneel in adoration. They didn't want it simple or practical. They didn't mind the challenge. They wanted it. The Archbishop continues, I realize it's a trivial example, a little thing. Maybe I read too much into it, but I wonder as well if once again our people, our young people, are telling us something. Quote, we don't like Catholic light. Don't pander to us. Call us to greatness. Call us to heroic virtue. Remind us that following Jesus calls for sacrifice and that we long for ways to let ourselves and the world know that we are different. Don't make things simple. Don't cater to convenience.
Beautifully said. Beautifully blogged, Archbishop. And
Good
that's
on
it.
you.
And that's the thing is, it's just like an '80s song from Michael Jackson and a throng of other celebrities. The children are the future. I mean, it is. It is our youth that are showing us again how to be Catholic. And
Our
that
dreams are like our children.
that's right. Anyway, but that's a beautiful example. You've got Archbishop Dolan, who's not an old man, right? But he has seen both the envelope. He gets it. Yeah, he gets it, and he can actually see the young people going, yeah, they read it more than likely, but they're in love with Jesus, and when you're in love with Jesus, you're willing to kneel in the mud. You know, you're willing to show adoration and actual.
What's so beautiful about this too is the fact that not only did he see this, but he was willing to blog about it. He was willing to speak about it. And we see so many examples where, I mean, look, to be honest, I love, I know our bishops have a tough job, but how many of those who, number one, would blog would have the audacity to be able to go out and actually speak about this instead of just noticing it and turning a blind eye?
And issue a challenge, too.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. Again, kudos to you, Archbishop Dolan. When you watch our podcast, when you're sitting back with your beverage of choice, watching our podcast, we thank you for that witness, because this, truly spoken as an archbishop, this will be seen by brother bishops. It will be seen by suffragan sees. It will be seen all over the world, not as a publicity stunt, but as a true call to conversion, inner conversion of heart, and that's a beautiful thing. So, we move into some news that really I'm trying to follow it all the way around the room because it seems like there's a lot to it. But it seems to be becoming a little bit more clear since it first came out, and that was Father Frank Pavone. You know him from Priests for Life. Was called out last week by Bishop Zurek in Amarillo, Texas, who accused him of a rather long list of financial issues, financial sins concerning Priests for Life and a couple of the other organizations surrounding Priests for Life. And so, I've been trying to follow it as best I can. We know Father Pavone, who is the best-known face. In fact, Joshua, did you know Father Pavone personally?
I had met him once or twice whenever I was working for Human Life International. I believe pro-life marches, whenever we would go, I had a chance to shake his hand, say the couple of words, and let him be on his way. But, this whole situation it's one of those that's, when it first came out, it's hard to judge and go, okay, what's going on here? Who is right or who's wrong? And I mean, from my personal opinion, and having looked at all this, I think there's a lot of issue on both sides of the equation. It seems to me the first thing I have an issue with is it seems that the bishop, first of all, used canonical language, which he shouldn't have, and secondly, something that should have been very private to deal with. I mean, the principle of subsidiarity, as Catholics, tells us that, as the gospel we read a couple of weeks ago, is that we go to our brother first, and then if your brother won't listen, then you bring a couple more, and if they won't listen, then you go to the church. And it seems to me this matter should have probably been held with a little more delicacy and a little more privacy with Father Pavone, which that's what disturbs me the most. The other issue, obviously, that really disturbs me is the issue of obedience. I think Father Pavone, as Canonist Ed Peters has said, while he may be certainly it looks like it might be a big misunderstanding from both sides on all of this. But I think there were a lot of statements issued that shouldn't have been, like things like, my time in Amarillo will certainly be short, or the other one about I'm going to seek incarnation, or I'm going to start my own religious order. I mean, that certainly doesn't scream obedience to me. And I know if I was a bishop and I saw those statements coming out, I would really start to question and really be on the offensive in this whole situation. But, obedience really calls us to be obedient, not to speak about it, but to do it.
And in some ways to suffer, too. I mean, suffer the being maligned if it is an untrue claim.
We look at the example of our Lord. I mean, that's always who we look to, and we see that he was spitten and beaten, and he said nothing. He simply complied against those who had authority over him. And to sit here, my other issue is that to release statements saying I'm being obedient seems superfluous to me. It's almost as like the Pharisee who says, I'm fasting. You know, I
Well.
don't want to say Father Pavone's being a hypocrite, but being obedient means that you just be obedient, that you don't have to tell others that you're being
Yeah.
obedient.
Well, of course, to his defense, there have been an awful lot of high-profile priests who have
Yeah.
come under attack.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, just putting myself in Father's shoes, I can just see kind of the wagon circling, at least in my own mind, the same way, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can certainly appreciate kind of saying, well, if a bishop is going to come out and say something that is not true, then I'm going to have to kind of redouble my efforts to make sure that it's clear, because it can undermine the good work that we are trying to do. I mean, that's
And also, again, in his defense as well, that you pointed out, that the bishop is the one who decided to make it a public matter.
Right.
He brought it to the
Right.
public sphere, so it's only right that Father Pavone deal with this
in the
in the
public.
public sphere too. But you know, there are certain things that if he wants to remain at priest for life, there are certain things that he has said thus far that could really negate his chances of that, because it doesn't come off as someone who is listening to the will of his bishop.
Well, one of the things that's not been discussed by, and I thought it was a massive failure on Dr. Ed Peters' part, is that there is a hole in the modern bureaucracy of the church. And I'm very quick to blame the U.S. bishops for a lot of things, and I don't think this is their fault. I think this is really the fault of Trent. There are certain priests who are doing ministry that cannot be described as diocesan, and yet can be described as good, holy, worthy, virtuous work.
Right.
And it's always been that way in the church, that, you know, that people have worked in the Roman Curia, or people have worked in the USCCB before it was the bureaucratic juggernaut that it is now. And they were always, and the technical term is incarnated, which means that they're under the direct authority of a bishop, but they may never see the man. They may report for one mass a year, and then they go off and do their thing. And the current bureaucracy has no place whatsoever for people for priests doing non-diocesan ministry. And the collapse of religious life in the last 50 years has had some part to play in that as well. But Father Pavone basically wanted to start a religious order some years ago, and the Bishop of Amarillo at that time said, look, don't worry with all that stuff, come be incarnated here. And of course that mistake was probably something that everybody's recognizing is a mistake now. But when that particular bishop who made that offer resigned, then the new bishop came in, and he didn't agree.
He knew nothing of Joseph.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. He knew nothing of Joseph, and so I think that, but I think that the failure is not necessarily on the part of Father Pavone. Whether he's been humble about it, that's a question.
Yeah.
But I think the failure is that there is not a proper mechanism for priests doing non-diocesan ministry. Incarnation is not the ideal, and religious life is not an option. And so you have people who fall through those cracks, and it's a real problem. And I don't think there's any effective, easy, or simple way to solve the problem.
Yeah, and not to get into terrible specifics, but I do want to make one correction there, Father, that's not exactly what exactly happened in Amarillo, because I was still working for HLI at the time, and the exact situation was Father Pavone left New York and became incarnated in Amarillo with the understanding at the time Bishop Yanta, who was Bishop of Amarillo, was on the board of Priests for Life, and he went there specifically to found his religious order. And so Bishop Yanta created and incarnated Father Pavone first into the Diocese of Amarillo, but shortly thereafter, he did found his religious order, the Missionaries for the Gospel of Life. And Father Pavone was the first incarnated member of that religious order. That shortly lasted only 8 months, because without getting into all of the specifics, because I don't know the exact specifics, but we do know there were some issues with Bishop Yanta at the time with Father Pavone. And so Bishop Yanta actually revoked his creation of the institute as an institute of diocesan right. He revoked it, and actually appeals were made to Rome and whatnot, and Rome actually sided with Bishop Yanta on that, saying it was uncanonically erected and all of those things. And so Father Pavone ended up becoming again a priest of Amarillo, because the constitutions and whatnot of his religious order were found to be defunct and just uncanonical, and so he ended up back as a priest of Amarillo. And but you do make an excellent point about how priests shift. But even in that case, when you have priests who work in the Roman rota or work in the congregation for bishops, it's never been understood, or at least to my understanding in the history of the church, that was going to be a lifetime assignment to anyone. Almost every priest that I've ever known who has worked in a Vatican office, maybe did so for 5-10 years, maybe even longer than that. But they always understood that at some point they weren't going to always remain there unless obviously they got appointed a bishop or something, or appointed by a request by the Holy Father himself. I know priests in New Orleans, priests in other dioceses who served in those capacities, and they eventually came back to their diocese. My biggest concern here is that you recognize the fact that when you're a priest of a diocese, that ultimately that you serve at the pleasure of your bishop.
Right.
And
right.
you can't be expected that you can remain somewhere for the rest of your life and your bishop can't tell you anything otherwise.
No.
And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, and that is a real struggle, because we are constantly battling our will over the will of God, and if we truly believe that the bishop is the one who interprets for us the will of God, to a real degree, then there is going to be that tension, I think,
Yeah.
Especially because, giving credence where it is due, not everybody listens to discernment properly. Whether it is a bishop giving an order or a priest taking it.
Well, and we had the same sort of things when there have been great moral crises in history, where you have somebody who focuses exclusively on that great moral crisis, and for either success or for failure, at some point when that crisis ends, they look around and go, what is my life? There were a number of priests who were very, very devoted to racial equality and to the end of slavery. And there are excellent biographies of those priests looking around going, okay, so let's go have a drink or something. And so, so there's definitely, I don't think it's a faulting in the church, but I think it's a faulting in the bureaucracy that we're seeing where someone has fallen through the gaps and that person happens to be a very public, very, very well-known figure. And of course it creates enormous drama.
Right. So we will continue to report on the drama as it unfolds. One of the things that has been happening, I don't know, Father Ryan, you've received any of these, but I've been getting fax after fax stating the suitability of ministry of Father Pavone, actually.
We don't have a fax machine, so I haven't had to worry about
that. we have a fax machine that looks like Marty McFly dropped it off on his way to the Lone Pine Mall. It's an oldie. If you've ever hung out in a Catholic blog where the comments are open and not oft moderated, then this next piece is for you. Over on the National Catholic Register's blog, Matthew Archbold really blogged something beautiful. It could be a seminal document, the Anti-Catholic's Guide to Catholic Comment Boxes. So basically what to expect when you're expecting anti-Catholic commenters. He said, he says, I don't think many Catholic bloggers see the angry anti-Catholic coming, because we're kind of halcyon when we're, quoting this or that Vatican document or whatever. And so he gave some little helpful hints here. So let's look at a couple of them just for funsies because, well, we can do that. So we've got number one. If the writer of a Catholic blog has raised the specter of something immoral, like, say, abortion, the angry comboxer must bring up the sex abuse scandal as a way of discounting anything or everything any Catholic writer says about anything. In fact, any topic a Catholic blogger wants to discuss can be derailed by accusing them of ignoring the abuse scandal. Now, how many times has that happened?
It's true.
Yeah, if I'm looking at, especially if it's on something like CNN or Fox News, you can bet the first comment is going to be about the abuse scandal. Yeah. Again, not that it wasn't horrific and isn't horrific, but it's an opportunity for an anti-Catholic to completely derail any sort of validity of an argument. We've seen it. Then number two. This is one of my favorites too. Anytime a conversation actually starts where something might be learned, it's always helpful to accuse the Pope of being a Nazi.
Yeah.
It's a last-ditch thing, but it's surprisingly effective. If you don't know the name of the Pope during World War II, just say the Pope. helped Hitler kill Jews or something like that. And there's always accusing Pope Benedict XVI a Hitler youth. Sure, registration was mandatory, but who cares? It's still a cheap shot, and it will have Catholics bending over backwards to explain it the whole time you just wanted to use the word Nazi and Pope linked together as often as possible. Yep, there you go. Yeah. And then number 4, introduce the flying spaghetti monster. Always a ComBox hit. Yeah, that's very true. Number 5 is to confuse infallibility. He even quotes the Toronto Star, which said this. This is a quote from the Toronto Star, an actual news paper. It said in one of its articles, though most in the Coptic Orthodox community send their children to Catholic school, they are not Catholic themselves. The differences are slight. They use the same liturgies, though Orthodox Christians differ from Roman Catholics in their belief that the Pope is a human being, not a divine figure. Yeah. Gosh. So, I mean, if the actual news media is reporting this, usually in the ComBox you can expect something like that too. So there you go. So you can read the rest over on the National Catholic Register blog, but we just thought that it was fun and surprisingly true. You know, life imitates art and humor imitates life, right? So there you go. Okay, well, we haven't done this in a while, but it's going to be part plug and part back chat. So let's take a little bit of time, well, for back chat. Alrighty, well, we got over here Father McLean Cummings, who has a blog over at mr-groceries.blogspot.com, Mr. Groceries. He posts his sermons and occasional other posts, and he wrote to ask us for a plug, of course, which we're happy to give. So it's mr-groceries.blogspot.com. It's a really clever little title blog here called Feeding Your Faith. If you have a lisp, it's very difficult to say. And it's the homilies of Father McLean, and he is in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. And I've been reading a couple of them, very, very good. In fact, these could easily be some homilies stealing.
And Father, just as an FYI, one of the few things I did learn whenever I lived in Virginia is that's actually pronounced McLean.
Oh, really?
Like Joe McLean? Yeah, it's not pronounced McLean.
Oh, well,
yeah,
okay.
They pronounce it McLean for some reason.
Sorry, Father.
So just, I assume I'm right, Father. You'll let us know if one of us is right.
Well, yeah, my accent hasn't doing an Irish accent or British or Scottish isn't what it used to be, so I could very well be off. So anyway, his address mr-groceries, because you can spell groceries.blogspot.com.
We hope so.
That's right.
It's in the show notes.
It's in the show notes, as it always will be. Well, as we round out the Catholic Underground, we can't stop. We just can't leave you without first going to the CU Pick of the Week. And so for our first CU Pick of the Week, we go over to Joshua LeBlanc, who is quite excited about his.
I don't know if we've talked about it before or not on the show, but I really love this little device called the Square Reader. If you have not had a chance to check it out, it came out really handy at CatholiCon.
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool about it is anybody can get one of these, and you can use it to accept payments, either if you have a business or personally. If you want to accept credit cards from someone for some service or anything you want to take credit cards for. It came in really handy at CatholiCon because really it's a little device that plugs into the headphone jack on your iPhone, and what it does is it has a slider, so you can actually slide the credit card through, and it transmits the data to your cell phone as audio tones. And so in the app, it'll actually take and you can process that credit card right there. It takes Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or American Express, and they just take a flat fee off the transaction. I think it's like 2.79% or something.
2.75.
2.75 was close.
There you go.
And what's really nice is, for example, at CatholiCon, people want to pay via credit cards for different things, registration. So we simply were able to do that right then and there. And there's no hassle, no paperwork. You can send the receipt to a person via email or text message. And again, you can do that to any bank account. It's really simple to set up. And you can actually pick these up at the Apple Store. They sell them for $10 a piece, and they come with a $10 credit on your account.
So basically, you're getting it for free.
Basically, you're getting it for free. I know in business, they come in really handy, and it really amazes a customer when you're out in the field and they go, "Can I pay by credit card?" And you're like, "Sure."
Yes, you can.
They're like, do I just sign right here? And then they get an email with their receipt. They're like, wow, really? We just did that? Yep.
Yes, that just happened.
And it's really,
Oh, yeah.
really yeah. Yeah, it's really, really small, really effective. In fact, currently, I've got like 16 of these things laying around because I just keep requesting more of them. They just keep sending them. So I've got like literally, I've got
That's our
5 of them
jobs.
right now.
That's how you get a lot of credits on your account. You just
Yeah, I mean, even personally, you can use them if you need to accept, a payment from a friend who owes you $50 that don't have cash.
All right, dude, cough it up, right?
No longer that's an excuse. Give me your credit card.
I thought we were friends.
Well, we're not. Give me your credit card.
The friendship
So-
ends. Yeah.
The days of having to have all these merchant accounts and everything are long gone. And being able, I know personally, whenever I have a customer, I have one of these online accounts too for my web hosting business. But it only I can only do Visa and MasterCard through it because Discover and American Express require, these other agreements that you have
Gymnastics.
to have dragon's blood or something to enter into. And
Which is hard to
But
get, by the way.
yeah, very difficult.
The only thing more
And so
difficult, a single dragon's tear.
Yes. And so it's really
It's gonna
nice
cost you
is
a lot of
a
galleons.
customer will say, "Can I pay via American Express?" And I'll go, "Yeah." And then you can also, you don't have to swipe it. You can also just enter it in manually too if you want, and that's nice as well.
Bugzoo says an alternative to the "Can you break $100 bill for the $10 I owe?"
There you go.
Yeah, Father Ryan's pulled that one on me before.
Once or twice.
Once or twice, yeah, one or $200 ago.
Can't help you if Gypsy steal all your credit cards though.
Well, no, that's true. That's right. And credit card numbers. Yeah, that's true. My pick of the week, though, I actually used currency to purchase. I have been looking for a good hands-free something or other for my car whenever I'm driving and wanting to use the phone. I don't have one of those clever phones that that connects to Bluetooth within my car because my car doesn't have that type of technology. It's an 08 model, and so I've been looking for a while for something, and I just happened across something in the Apple Store and said, we'll give it a shot. It is called the Belkin Car Audio Connect auxiliary with Bluetooth. You can see it on the screen if you're watching our video cast, and we'll have a link in the show notes. It's basically a Bluetooth little dongle that connects to your auxiliary lighter, and then a little a USB key on it, as well as a headphone jack. The headphone jack goes into your aux port. Of course, the power goes into your cigarette lighter thing. And then you can actually charge your iPhone just like you normally would. But the real magic is that it is a Bluetooth device. And so you press, it's only got one button. You press that button, and it syncs to your iPhone. And you then have Bluetooth audio. So it would be for listening to music and podcasts or making telephone calls because it has a microphone on it. So you are hands-free. Just like that. In fact, I spent $80 on it, whereas Father Ryan spent several $100s trying to get Bluetooth audio in his car, and it doesn't always sound good, Father.
I don't care. It's nice.
It is nice. You actually have
Sounds fine
readouts.
for me.
You have readouts and stuff on your car of
Yeah,
what's playing.
Tells
But
you what song is playing. And that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
I don't have all of that.
I can control that from the steering wheel.
You do need an auxiliary port. I do believe that they sell another product that doesn't use the auxiliary port. Someone was saying in the chat room, yeah, you do need an aux port. I think they make another type of one. But you can look on the Belkin website. Since the podcast can't be that long, we got to keep on rolling. But that's my pick of the week. We then move to Father Ryan Humphreys for your POTW.
Yeah, my pick of the week is actually a review this week. I got a review
Oh.
copy of the Vatican II hymnal from the CMAA, which I'm sure Father Chris is putting on the screen.
I'm
even
working
as we
on it.
speak. The Vatican II hymnal is coming from the Church Music Association of America. It includes an ordinary form and extraordinary form text in Latin and English using the new translation of the Mass. All the readings, all the antiphons, including a communion antiphon, including an offertory antiphon, and an option for either the responsorial psalm or a gradual for every Sunday and Holy Day from all 3 years is included. So it can replace missalettes. It has Mass settings in English, Latin, and a ton of what's called ad libitum, which gives you the possibility of saying, I want to pick and choose this Alleluia, that Holy Holy. It's got tons of hymns and some traditional songs. It's got links all through it, URLs, to free organ accompaniment and also SATB settings for almost all of the music. The price point is going to be about $15, and it's just incredible. I love this book. I've spent some time going through it. The CMAA will almost certainly, once it becomes completely available, make it available for free download. You can download the PDF of the...
They get it.
Yeah, there are other hymnals. You can download a PDF of them. You can cut and paste out of them. This book, in combination with the simple English propers that I recommended a few months ago, really is the holy grail. If you want to do music right, it's no longer impossible. It used to be a nightmare to try to find out what you needed to know. This book has everything. It's going to be $15. It's going to be it's not going to have every hymn in the free world, but it does have. It's a good straddling hymnal.
Yeah.
It has some modern hymns. It has some ancient hymns. It has some English. It has some Latin. It's a beautiful hymnal, and it's something I really strongly encourage every pastor and music director out there to buy a copy of, look it over. Right now, it's not publicly available, but they're saying they should have it done by the end of this year, and hopefully by the time the new translation takes effect. And I'm very seriously considering buying it for my parish. At $15 a book, it can replace missalettes, and it can become an incredibly valuable resource. And so I'm pumped. I'm very, very excited about it, and I hope that people will go to ccwatershed.org/Vatican, and they have some incredible actually trailers for the book. So go take a look at it. It's great.
Very cool. That excites me greatly. In fact, while you were talking about it, I was sending a copy of it to of the link to my music director.
Oh, it's great. I think he's really going to enjoy it. Well, let me hop forward to talk about Audible.com. We have to always make sure we thank Audible.com for their sponsorship of CatholicUnderground.com. Audible is the world's leading supplier of audiobooks and spoken word digital audio. If you surf over to audibletrial.com/CatholicUnderground, you're going to get 2 weeks free to try the service out. And the Gold plan is going to offer you one audiobook every month, and it's going to give you access to tons of free and discounted materials, books, magazines, speeches, even daily newspapers read to you in the dulcet tones of whoever reads them to you, like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. You could take your commute or your time at the gym or your yard work or whatever else it is that you can't focus on something and turn it into something really meaningful. And so this week I'm going to recommend a book that Father Chris just loves. I'm going to recommend A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller. The book is 11 hours of enjoyment, goodiness.
I think it took me a lot longer to read that book, actually, than 11 hours.
This is one of my favorite books, and the audiobook is spectacular. So I'm really pumped about it, and I hope you'll go over and get a go of it. It's one of the weirdest, most delightful books I've ever read. So A Canticle for Leibowitz, audibletrial.com/CatholicUnderground. Help us out. Check it out.
Brother Armbruster gets my pick for the coolest name in that book. That's right.
He doesn't beat Magic Thighs from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's right. No, yeah, that's true. It is. Yeah. It's a close call.
Or Slarty Bartfast.
That's right. Slarty Bartfast may be one of the best, next to pincket-smith. Alrighty, for links to our Twitter feed, our Facebook page, and if you want to view live video as it occurs from Salt and Light Television and other video and audio offerings that we have for you, you can go over to CatholicUnderground.com without delay to check that out. It just occurs to me that if I'm going to do this, I need to bring up some music because it's the end of the show. So, anyway, I can only do so many things. And I've got a cat in one hand, so I can't really do 12 things at once.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that happened. Yeah. She was I have a new cat. And she was starting to chew on wires, and so I just kind of scooped her up. Yeah. Anyway, Joshua LeBlanc, he's the meatloaf tester at cybercatholics.com. He's at JR LeBlanc on Twitter. Thank you, Joshua, for joining us.
Thank you. And I'm wondering, the food or the singer?
I'm
hoping it's the food. That's
right, because we need dinner.
Yes.
Alrighty, Father Ryan, he's here. You've seen him there. He's online with his church at camptycatholicchurch.com. All of his personal posts are on Twitter. He has at FR Humphreys. Thank you, Father Ryan.
It's been my pleasure.
And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker, and I introduced to you, this is Coco. She is a cat. That's about all I can say. But the cool thing is, she actually has a little collar, just like me. It's I'm sorry, Coco. Yeah, she's like, why you put me on the TV? Alrighty, I'm Father Chris Decker. I'm a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. You know me. Now you know my cat. We're Catholic Underground. We're Faith Gone Digital. We'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.